Hi. So, when you're being a good mom and you bring your teenager some tea and they don't really like notice or say anything about it, and you're like, I can roll with that. And so you're like calm and casual, and you just kind of like linger nearby maybe a minute, and they go, you know what? And they start talking to you, and you're like, oh, and you are listening, and you're like being a good mom, and you're like rubbing their back, and you're like, this is awesome. I'm like rubbing their back and listening to them talk, and you're just like doing your good mom thing, and then then they go, oh, that's like, oh, that's too much, or oh, that hurts, and you're like, okay. And so you like pause your hands, and then you're just kind of like, oh, that was the wrong move, but you're still wanting to like be in the moment with them. And so and they start talking about something else, and your hands kind of like lightly land on them, and you're listening, and you're like, oh yeah, and you're following along with who said what and stuff like that, and your hand just like absentmindedly starts to like gently like just gently rub their back or something like that, and it's going well, and then suddenly it doesn't go well, and they're like, you're just rubbing my skin off, God. And you're like, ah. There's you're like, but I don't want to, like, they're gonna leave in a couple minutes, I'm gonna stay here and like be with them in the morning time. And then eventually they're like, I gotta go. And you're like, have some of your tea. And they're like, I can't, I have to leave. And so then you're like standing there with your tea, their tea, totally like ghosted as they walk out the door without having had any tea. And you know well, that is neurochemistry. That's shifting neurochemistry, which happens for all of us, adults too, where we're like, oh, I'm really looking forward to this thing that I'm going to do today. And then you're like, oh, nothing is working out for me. And then like, I can't take it anymore. And then, oh, my dog is so cute. And like, oh, things aren't so bad. And like, so we have like phases through the day where we have different neurochemistry going on. And for teens and 2-year-olds, those same fluctuations happen, but in rapid fire. And it's not their personality per se. It's that they're sort of at the whims of their own wiring that is under construction, a reconstruction. It's like a great reassembly of the brain, and so there's a lot of unpredictability and wild, like, great shifts in their neurochemistry. So they're going from executive, where they're like, oh, mom, we need to do XYZ, to emotional, oh, nothing ever works out, or to, oh, that was too much, but they're doing that. They can do that in the span of 10 minutes. They can go through all three rapid fire like that. And so as the parent of a teen, it's not as helpful for us to be like, hey, don't talk to me that way, when they're in this mode, because they just go, I'm not talking to you any kind of way. And we don't have the interaction that we want to have. As a teen parent, the idea is just to like dance, right? Like you stay very nimble, stay very flexible, very much on your toes, where you're like, oh, they're in, survival. Like, I have tools for that. Oh, they're droopy emotional. Oh, I have tools for that. Oh, they're executive. Oh, okay, I'm going to circle back about the thing we need to do, or how you accept tea from somebody who's offering it to you. So we dance with their neurochemistry, which also shifts their neurochemistry, and only do the meaningful addressing when they're executive enough to hear it. It doesn't mean we like it. We still don't like it, but if we know what's happening, like, oh, I'm watching the shifts happen, I'm watching the different brain networks kick on and off, then we at least have like an understanding of what's happening. So even though we don't love it, we can understand it, and we can dance and do something with it. So if you want to know the dance, if you want to know the dance steps, there's a number of them, and they're for each brain state. So there's steps for and there's steps for and there's steps for, oh, you know what? Like, there's dance steps that we can do as parents for each of those states. If you're interested, you can message me. Got lots of options, and we can discuss.